Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome on this. Isn't it a glorious spring day? Unbelievable. I'm Janet Riopel. I'm the president and CEO of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. I'm so pleased to welcome you on behalf of our board of directors and our members who employ over 100,000 people in our region. Before we begin, I'd ask you to join me in recognizing that we're meeting on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of First Nation and Métis peoples. We're delighted that so many of you have joined us today for our 2021 annual general meeting. We're here this afternoon for several very important reasons. We'll begin with conducting the essential business of the Edmonton Chamber. Then we'll have a unique opportunity to gain some insight and perspective from our guest speaker, Jason Pincock, CEO of Dynalife Medical Labs. Most importantly, we're here to inform you, our members. We're a member-driven organization, so without your continued support and involvement and passion, we simply wouldn't be able to meet our full potential. Thank you so much for being here. Now, we've all become accustomed, I know, to these virtual meeting platforms, but allow me just to run through a few housekeeping items for you. During the formal portion of our meeting, you'll use the polling feature to cast your vote and help us complete formal motions. We're actually going to do a quick poll right now so you can see how it works. A window is going to pop up on your screen shortly, and when it does, you have 10 seconds to choose yes or no. Please vote now. All right, look at that. Look at that. You know, we're operating sort of with half people and sort of rotating teams of people. And it looks like a lot of you are doing the same. Very interesting. Okay, thanks for participating in that poll. This is how you'll participate in each of the votes that's called during the formal part of our proceedings. And we're also going to do a little bit of informal survey work, that question being one, so that we can glean a little information on how your business is doing and what you're planning in this third wave. If you have questions or comments for any of our presenters throughout the course of our meeting today, please feel free to use that Q&A feature on your toolbar. So our moderator will monitor that and will ensure that your question is posed to the appropriate person at the right time. Now, have you met our board of directors? I want to introduce them to you. Our board members are all volunteers and they give so generously of their time and energy to guide our chamber. Alan McDonald is the chair of our board and the vice president of external relations at the University of Alberta. Dennis Schmidt is the vice chair of our board. He's the principal of Altura Legal Advisory. Craig Thorkelson is our board's secretary treasurer. He's the head of tax with PCL Constructors. And Brian Deneve is our past board chair. He's senior vice president of business development and commercial services with Capital Power. Aziz Mutwala is vice president of Casey and Architecture. Nathan Carter is vice president operations audit with ATCO. Haydar Aldahan is president and CEO at DesignWorks Engineering. Sandy Jacobson is vice president of Richardson Executive Search. Jason Pincock is CEO of Dynalife Medical Labs. Anne-Marie Petrov is president and CEO of the Francis Winspear Center for Music. And Jeffrey Sundquist is CEO of EDC Environmental Group of Companies. You know, board members, thank you all so much for your support and your such incredible contributions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in past, we've taken the opportunity at our chamber ball to bid farewell to our outgoing board chair and welcome our incoming chair. You all know that. And I know you join me in lamenting the fact that our chamber ball couldn't take place this past January. We decided then that this AGM would be our opportunity to formally address these two very important moments. So let me begin with Brian Deneve. Brian is the past chair of our board of directors. His year, to put it mildly, was one of tremendous challenge for our chamber, and I mean for our whole world. Brian led us with a strong sense of calm and resolve that really kept us on solid footing. Over the summer and fall of last year, he led our efforts to consult with our business community in an extensive series of roundtables. And that, of course, resulted in our roadmap for our economic recovery that we entitled Forging Our Future. We're extremely fortunate to have had Brian's leadership throughout this really, I feel like I'm understating this difficult time. Please enjoy this video presentation from Brian Deneve.
It has been my sincere honor to serve as the chair of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors for the past year. I do not believe any of us could have imagined how different 2020 would become, how a global pandemic would impact almost every aspect of our daily lives. As businesses continue to struggle with the worst economic downturn in a generation, we at the Chamber have worked hard to ensure our municipal, provincial, and federal governments understand what Edmonton businesses need in order to emerge successfully from the pandemic. I continue to be impressed by the resilience of our Edmonton business community, and am so grateful for the incredible businesses and people that make up the Chamber network. I would like to thank Janet and her team for all their hard work, support, and advocacy efforts to help businesses in our community succeed. The past year was particularly challenging, but Janet and her team continue to support the business community using new avenues of communication and shifting focus to online support. I would also like to thank my fellow board members for their dedication to the Chamber and for working together to create a business community in Edmonton we can all be proud of. And last but certainly not least, my thanks to each of you, our valued members. You are the economic engine of our economy, and we appreciate all that you contribute each and every day. I wish you all a great day and hope you enjoy the rest of our annual general meeting.
All right. Brian, you know, this has been an incredibly difficult year. 2020, no one saw it coming. And yet you just led us so capably and ably throughout this year, even in a virtual manner. And I can't thank you enough, and I know I thank you on behalf of all of us, on our behalf of our board of directors, the mighty Chamber team, and our employers who employ over 100,000 people in our region. So we just have a small token of our appreciation. I want to present you with this bear.
Thank you very much, Janet. And I've very much enjoyed the past year and working with the Chamber team, which has been an incredible experience.
Well, your advice and guidance was invaluable. Virtual applause for our wonderful past board chair. Brian, thank you so much. I know we all wish we could have done that in a room at the Ball. Now, we're also warmly welcoming our incoming board chair, Alan McDonald. And earlier this year, Alan was formally sworn in by Mayor Don Iveson. So please enjoy a video of that ceremony.
It's a privilege to be here. The last time I get to do this, but very thrilled to be swearing in my friend and yours as the new chair of the Chamber's Board of Directors, Alan McDonald. Congratulations. Now, please repeat after me. I, Alan McDonald.
I, Alan McDonald.
Swear that I will faithfully and truly perform my duty.
Swear that I will faithfully and truthfully perform my duty.
As chair of the board of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce.
As chair of the board of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce.
And that I will, in all matters connected.
And that I will, in all matters connected.
With the discharge of such duty.
With the discharge of such duty.
Do all things and such things only.
Do all things and such things only.
As I truly and conscientiously believe.
As I truly and conscientiously believe.
To be adapted to promote the objects.
To be adapted to promote the objects.
For which the said chamber was constituted.
For which the said chamber was constituted.
According to the true intent and meaning of the same.
According to the true intent and meaning of the same.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Alan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, Alan, congratulations. Congratulations and thank you for taking on this role at such a fundamentally important time in the evolution of the Edmonton Chamber. You know, it's such a pleasure to work with you, and I've just enjoyed it so much. I'm going to turn this over to you now as our board chair to lead us through the formal proceedings of our 2021 annual general meeting. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Janet, and welcome everyone. I'm now going to call the meeting to order. And ladies and gentlemen, at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, we're committed to using our powerful voice to positively influence decisions made by every order of government. Throughout the pandemic, this role has been more important than ever. Last March, at the onset of the pandemic, the Edmonton Chamber team focused on understanding what the business community was going through during this period of remarkable uncertainty and instability. We called each of our members to hear their stories, provide offers of help in any way that we could. We created a COVID-19 preparedness section on our website with reliable, current information from trusted sources. We established the COVID-19 support network, matching organizations in need of supplies to individuals and organizations that can support them in some way. We developed the COVID-19 Skillshare and Volunteer Program, matching workers whose time and skills were underutilized with charities and nonprofits who are in desperate need of volunteers. We undertook a series of surveys to better understand the impacts of COVID-19 on businesses and to help inform us in order that we could speak effectively to our governments. Governments sought out the information we were gleaning, and they responded as quickly as they could to design the kinds of support programs we have today. When the federal government launched a 10% wage subsidy, we told them this wasn't nearly enough, contributing to the creation of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. When it was clear the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program wasn't working, we worked with other business groups to urge governments to go back to the drawing board, leading to the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy Program that exists today. When we heard from businesses who were falling through the eligibility cracks of various supports, we pushed for a flexible assistance program, which led to the creation of the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. As businesses began to reopen, we heard frustrations from many about how few customers were wearing masks. As a result, we embarked on a campaign urging Edmontonians to protect not only themselves, but to protect frontline service workers and our economic recovery by wearing masks in public. And after years of urging City Council to halt property tax increases, in 2020 and 2021, non-residential properties were finally approved for 0% increases. These are just a few of the many achievements that define 2020 for the Edmonton Chamber. I encourage you to visit our website to read our 2020 member report and learn more about our commitment to supporting our vibrant business community. In 2021, we'll continue to support and enhance the Edmonton business community by advocating for conditions that keep your businesses competitive, delivering educational experiences that help you thrive, and connecting you to the right people. The past 13 months have underscored the important role chambers of commerce play in fostering a strong and sustainable business ecosystem. And it's an honor and a privilege to serve as chair on the board of such a dynamic, vibrant, and essential organization. I would like to thank everyone who volunteers time to support Chamber's advocacy work and member experience. Our accomplishments simply wouldn't be possible without your commitment. So now we're going to move into the formal business of our meeting today. The 2020 AGM minutes were attached as part of your meeting package. I'm going to presume that you've had a chance to read them, and so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the 2020 annual general meeting as circulated.
Madam Chair, Sandy
Yes.
Jacobson has moved the motion.
Oh, terrific. Thank you, Sandy. Could we have someone second the motion, please?
And Brian Deneve has seconded the motion.
Great. Thank you. So in a few seconds, a poll will appear on your screen and you're going to have 10 seconds to vote on the motion. So all those in favor? Wonderful. The motion has passed. Thank you. Great. So I'm now going to ask Robin Eason, audit partner with KPMG, to present the 2020 audited financial statements. Robin has kindly offered to take questions following her presentation, so I'm going to encourage you to think about what you might want to ask. So over to you, Robin, please.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for having me here today. I wanted to make a few brief comments about the audit itself, and then I can walk you through some of the highlights of the financial statements. The audit went well this year, despite it being a bit of an unusual year for all of us. And we were able to meet with management, the audit committee, and the board to review the full results of our audit, as well as to go through the financial statements. We answered questions to the board's satisfaction, and the financial statements were approved on April 9th. Within your package, you'll see a full version of the financial statements. Attached to them is also a clean opinion from KPMG. I believe some highlights will come up. Great, thank you. As I said, the full financial statements are in your package, so this is just an excerpt, but I did want to walk through some of the more notable items for the 2020 year. Looking first at the information on the slide here, this is the statement of financial position, so the balance sheet as at the end of December. Looking at your total assets to begin with, you can see that there has been a small increase year over year. So the chamber's sitting at 11.6 million in assets. Looking upwards from that subtotal, a few things may catch your eye that one in particular that I'll touch on. Quite a notable increase in accounts receivable as at the end of 2020 at 1.3 million. Included in that amount is a significant receivable of 520,000 in relation to the wage subsidy. Those amounts were then subsequently received after year end. Looking down at the bottom half of the information on the slide here, you'll see liabilities and net assets. A few items as well here that I'll draw your attention to. The first on the liability side in relation to deferred revenue, a decrease there from 253,000 in the prior year down to just shy of 100,000. Obviously stands to reason given that in the past, deferred revenue included dollars that had been collected in advance of events taking place. Unfortunately, not the case as at the end of 2020. The other area I'll highlight for you are your total net assets, so your various equity accounts. As at the end of the year, the Chamber's equity had increased to just over 8 million as compared to 7.2 in the prior. And you may notice there that the increase is largely sitting in the unrestricted fund. In the past, that was at zero, and this year it's increased to 775,000. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. On this slide, you'll see the statement of operations or the income statement for the year. Again, just focusing in on the high points for you. The Chamber's total revenue for 2020 was 4.5 million as compared to 5.2 in the prior year. An item of note is what's described as miscellaneous income, the last line in the revenue category, sitting at 629,000. Included in there are a significant amount of subsidies. So the wage subsidy, as well as some subsidies received under the CCRA program. So obviously anomalous for the 2020 year. Looking at total expenditures, there has been a notable decrease in expenditures year over year at 3.8 million, as opposed to 4.6 in the prior year. The main driver of that is an overall decrease in payroll expenses as well as event-related expenses. And the revenue and expenditures taken together result in a surplus for the year. So the last line here on the slide at 770,000, bearing in mind that included in that is about 580,000 worth of subsidies. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the cash flows for the Chamber during the year. Looking at the bottom first, you'll see an overall decrease in cash. In the prior year, there was just over $1 million in cash at the end of the year. At the end of 2020, there was 562,000 in cash, so a decrease of just over $500,000. In looking up to the details contained on this schedule, you'll see the drivers behind that. Largely operations, which consumed $517,000 worth of cash. And the next slide, please. two notes here that have been extracted from the full financial statement that we just wanted to highlight for you. Note 2 provides a more detailed breakdown of accounts receivable. And as I previously mentioned, a large component of that does relate to the wage subsidy that was applied for during the year. And note 12 has been tailored for the 2020 year, just to highlight some of the uncertainties in relation to the pandemic and to also provide the reader with some information on the measures that have been taken by the Chamber during 2020. And that brings me to the end of my formal comments. So I think I will pass that back to you, Ellen.
Great, thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Board of Directors and our entire team at the Edmonton Chamber. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to back up because I think we're going to have a Q&A session. I preempted you, Lisa.
Not a worry at all. Yes, Robin will be happy to take any questions from our guests, and you can just bring those forward by using the Q&A tool on the bottom of the toolbar. And we'll just give it a few moments. So there appears there's no questions at this time. So Madam Chair, I will turn the podium back to you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Lisa, and thanks to you, Robin. So now, on behalf of the Board of Directors and our entire team at the Edmonton Chamber, I'd like to thank KPMG for the excellent service that you've provided to the Chamber over the past 4 years. I'm now going to ask for a motion to approve the 2020 audited financial statements as circulated.
Madam Chair, Craig Thorkelson has moved the motion.
Great, thank you. And I'll ask for a seconder, please.
And it appears Haydar Aldahan has seconded the motion.
Okay, wonderful. So a poll will now again appear on your screen, and you're going to have 10 seconds to vote on the motion. All those in favor? Great, the polling is closed. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so now at this time, I'd like to call for a motion to approve KPMG as the Edmonton Chamber's auditors for 2021, please.
Madam Chair, Mark Evans has moved the motion.
Great, thank you, Mark. I'll ask for someone to second, please.
I do have Troy Tate who has seconded the motion.
Okay, terrific. So a poll will now appear again on your screen, and you'll have 10 seconds to vote. All those in favor? Great, motion carried. Thank you. Well, thank you. This concludes the formal proceedings of today's AGM, and I'll now turn the meeting back over to Janet to take us through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Robin, thank you so much for your great presentation today. Now, before we hear from our guest speaker, we're going to have another quick poll. And I see you're all voting, so thank you so much for that. A window's going to pop up on your screen shortly. And any minute now, vote yes or no. Okay. You know, that's, isn't it important? We see downtown, our streets are empty. We've got to get people back on the streets here in our industrial areas. We simply have to get people back to work. We've talked about it a lot for mental health and wellness for so many reasons, not the least of which is to get this economy up and running and humming. So thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. It's now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Jason Pincock, CEO of Dynalife Medical Labs. Employing over 1,400 Albertans, Dynalife is one of Canada's most highly regarded multidisciplinary clinical laboratory organizations. They're recognized as one of Canada's best managed companies and are consistently one of Alberta's top employers. Jason has been with Dynalife since its inception in 1996. As CEO, he works with executives inside government and industry to structure and support new and innovative service models for healthcare. He personally participates and leads various biotech-related industry groups, and he participates on numerous community committees and boards, including his role as chair of Health City. Jason holds a CPA designation. He's a graduate of the executive program at Queen's, and he's a member of the Institute of Corporate Directors. He was born and raised in Edmonton, and he is the proud father of 6 children. Jason, welcome. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Janet. And I would be remiss if I didn't start by congratulating Janet on her next adventure and leaving such an amazing legacy at the Chamber. You know, as one of the newest members of the board, I'm really excited and at the same time a little nervous, as I know I've known Janet as the core of the Chamber for as long as I've been a leader. And so it's congratulations, Janet.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You know, I'm speaking today to a bunch of leaders from the Edmonton region, and you know, so sometimes we have to go out and do something that's not very comfortable, and I thought maybe I would approach today from that angle, which is to tell you a little bit of background of what it's meant to be, you know, a finance guy in charge of a lab company in one of Canada's largest labs in the middle of the world's most relevant pandemic, certainly in my lifetime, and I think in all of our lifetimes. And it's been an interesting year as I reflect on everything that's happened and everything that we've tried to do for Alberta in that time. And so rather, I thought I would go off script today. And we have left a lot of time at the end for me to answer some questions. So I see there's 85 participants. I'm hoping we've got 85 questions, because I can't imagine that what has happened over the last year hasn't impacted all of us as leaders. And I'm happy to talk about types of testing and what it means for employers and creating safe work environments, and even to some degree, although I'm not a doctor, we can talk about vaccines. But you know, this journey for me started a little earlier than this time last year. For those of you who aren't familiar with Dynalife, we do have about 1,400 people in the Edmonton and Northern Alberta. We are one of Canada's largest medical labs, so all that testing that goes to your doctor comes to us. And we work very closely with AHS and public health. One of our unique challenges in the province is that everyone who is in our field works either for us or for public health, and there's no other pool of people to draw from. So you can imagine going into the pandemic, what that has meant, as every lab in the world has scrambled to find the resources to support this. You know, our journey started with, an early warning. And I think for me, it didn't really get real until we saw something like the NBA start canceling their season. And around us, around the world, we started watching things deteriorate. And yet we felt kind of protected in Canada. We felt like, okay, well, it's going to come, but it's not the same. We're not like Italy. We're watching what's going on in the U.S. and going, we're way more responsible than that. That's not going to happen here. And we watched, and we watched as the world changed overnight. And I remember, I'm a medical company. I remember these masks, right, that we're all familiar with now. And I remember watching them go from, 10 cents to $2.50 if you could find one. And I remember suddenly spending half a $1,000,000 buying masks and flying them from China in cargo planes from suppliers I'd never met before, hoping that they would actually show up and that our staff would have PPE to go to work each day. We serve over almost 2 million Albertans every year, and we do about 20 million tests. And as I sit here this evening, we have over almost 10,000 COVID tests entering this building to get tested today for Albertans, which is the equivalent of taking every man, woman, and child in Morinville and lining them up outside our door to get swabbed and tested today. We're doing more COVID tests today than we're probably doing healthcare tests for the rest of the system. It's been an unbelievable journey. And I will tell you that, that journey has been really hard, but really important. It's not very often in our careers that we get the opportunity to truly make a difference. And I'm not just talking about, having a really successful year and making a great bottom line, but I'm talking about the ability to actually do something so meaningful that you are literally, changing your province for, saving people's lives and the neighbors and the families that you know. I will tell you, one of the scariest parts of wave one was not understanding what this was yet. And while everyone else went into lockdown, those of us who weren't allowed to lock down, we had to ramp up. The scariest part was sending our staff into the unknown. I remember as we struggled and we argued with our medical staff and our safety officers trying to figure out if this was airborne or if it was droplet, if putting masks on our people and face shields was enough, if sending people into patients' homes fully gowned and having them strip down at the door, spray themselves down, gown up like they were going into sort of a CDC level 3 lab to walk into someone's home because that person, had a chronic disease and needed our support, was the right thing. And what were we actually putting our staff at risk to? Making tough decisions. I remember when we had to tell communities that we were shutting their lab down, when in truth I was lying. We weren't shutting their lab down. If you lived in Riverbend, you probably wondered, like, why did Dynalife shut Riverbend down? Why did you take my community lab away? And the truth is, we actually shut it to you, and we opened it to the most vulnerable. And we saw one person at a time in that entire facility for months because those people, had compromised immune systems. And we did that in a couple places throughout the province, and we did it quietly, and we didn't tell anyone we were doing it, and we were literally bringing people in through the back door to keep them safe. When I look at that, there's nothing I hate more than lying to the public to protect the public. And those are really hard decisions as leaders to try and justify and explain. But we had no option, because if we had told people we were open, it would have flooded the place, and there would be this group of the population who needed us the most, and we just couldn't have protected. The wave one was about fear. It was about a total lack of understanding about where this was going to go. It was a total lack of understanding about when we might be called on to weigh into the testing fight. What would our province need of us? Where were we going to find people? How were we going to protect our people? As I sit here today, I couldn't be more prouder than the fact that, over a year and a half later, of our 1,400 people, which now has grown, it grew at one point to about 1,700 people, not a single person contacted COVID at work. Not to say that we didn't have COVID cases, we have. But those were all driven from community, not driven from either one of our patients or one of our staff to staff. And I hope that gives organizations courage, because we had no choice. We didn't get to shut down. We didn't get to stop what we were doing. And there's lots of organizations like us where that just wasn't an option. And I'm proud to say that we can do that safely. As we went into wave two, we had not weighed in. Well, we were supporting the assessment centers. Our job was really for all those patients out there who still needed healthcare. Everyone sort of forgot that COVID didn't care that you had cancer, and COVID didn't care that you had diabetes, and COVID didn't care, that you had Crohn's or other chronic diseases. Yet all those people still needed our support. And as the world shut down, the acuity that occurred outside of the hospitals just went up and up and up. And so we had to find whole new models to try and help those people and, protect our families and all the patients around us. And we hadn't yet weighed into testing, because public health testing was the purview of the provincial lab. That wasn't our mandate. That was Dr. Hinshaw's team's mandate. And so we looked around and said, well, where else can we help? And one of the areas that we saw was, as we sort of went into the summer, was there was starting to be talk about, okay, how do we keep some things moving in our economy, and how do we keep some wheels turning? And so I ended up in a number of discussions with a lot of our sort of political leaders at the municipal level, at the provincial level, and to some degree even at the federal level, about how do we keep industry moving, and how do we make it move safely? And it was right around that time that the concept where, and I'll give the NHL credit. When everybody else was shutting down, the NHL was just dead set that they were going to figure out how to do this. And I remember I'd never worked with Tim Shipton in OEG before. I'd never had really a reason to. We were on two different sides of industry, and it was not our thing. But I remember the call from Tim saying, look, we want to put in a bid. We want to be an NHL bubble. Could you guys help us with that? And, you know, I was looking at that going, well, we don't do COVID testing. COVID testing is Dr. Hinshaw's team and AHS. Like that's their piece. We do all the other testing. And so we started the conversation. And it became very clear that government was in a very difficult position. You know, on one hand, they had an obligation to the public to keep us all safe. And on the other hand, we had a province that was slipping deeper and deeper into a recession and was struggling from an economic perspective. And, you know, I don't envy anyone in the political level who has to make decisions like that. And so they posed an interesting challenge to me. And they said to my team, if you can do it without taking any resources away from public health and from Dr. Hinshaw's team and AHS, then we will support it. But you can't use anything that they need. That is a really tough challenge. That is a really, really tough challenge because AHS and public health was desperately trying to find every chemical they could, every you know, tip they could for every instrument, every consumable, every piece that went into testing. So my team took that challenge, and OEG took that challenge. And at first, you know, it was a really long shot. Like, how is Edmonton going to compete with every other city in the NHL that wants to do this? But we thought it was really important for Alberta, and quite frankly, Alberta needed to stay on the world stage. And so our focus was really around how do we use this as a proof point for Alberta? So what we did is we actually gathered molecular scientists from the U of A. We reached into the vendor community, and to be honest with you, it was kind of like, does someone have a Civic out there, a Honda Civic or something? Like, I recognize we're running a Formula One race, but there's got to be something we can use out there. And so we mapped out everything that public health was doing, and we looked for the gaps. And we said, okay, what does public health not use? And we actually designed science. And this is a credit to, you know, some of the work that I do with Health City. We have some amazing health innovation here. In fact, our health innovation created 3 novel COVID tests, not created anywhere else in the world, that were deployed here in Alberta first, and then shared through the National Microbiology Lab, which is like our version of the CDC, with communities across Canada to help support their COVID response. And that all started because we decided to take on the NHL challenge. So we actually created new technology here that public health and no one else had seen or was using to test for COVID. And technology that really was first class. It was amazing. You know, and it's something I'm just so proud that, and this is not just a Dynalife thing, this just speaks to, you know, truly the level and caliber of work that we can do here. And, you know, at over 70,000 tests later, not a single breach of the bubble. You know, it wasn't say there wasn't a couple COVID tests that were positive, but they weren't the bubble, they were support staff. We injected, by saying yes to that challenge in this province and in this community, we injected $40 million worth of investment back into Edmonton. We put Edmonton on the world stage, and that NHL run for 70 days straight became the proof point to the world that you can run a successful bubble. And the most successful bubble that has ever been run was right here in Edmonton, and right here with our own team. And that bubble allowed us to, we actually had to go out, as I mentioned at the beginning, there was no staff to hire. It was either public health or us. Everyone was employed in this industry. So we had to create a new workforce. And we actually reached into the retail sector. We had all these people who had all these amazing customer service skills, and we turned them into medical staff. And we taught them how to swab. And, you know, they went from, you know, selling a t-shirt to doing a throat swab on an NHL player. And we did that alongside AHS, and we did that, we had competency programs. We worked actually with Nate and a number of other partner organizations We created a workforce. And it was right after the NHL bubble that I got another call from government, which was, we have a problem. People need to fly. And so we talked to WestJet. WestJet's kind of our airline. I think we all, whether you're from Edmonton or Calgary, I think you're a little possessive of WestJet. And we had a really good chat with WestJet about what it would mean for people to fly. Mostly, and it didn't start with sunny destinations. It started with the fact that COVID stranded people, literally stranded families here who couldn't go home, stranded students who were on visas that expired, who had to go home. They weren't allowed to stay. And yet the world had put up walls. They had put up these walls that said, you can't get on a plane unless you've had a test. And so, we weighed into that challenge. The most interesting part of that challenge was not the testing. We had figured out the testing. We had to create overnight a mechanism by which you could fly with documentation accepted by any country in the world with a chain of custody process that proved that you got it done and you got it done properly. And you got it done by a lab at international standards. And so I have the benefit of having a software development team. I know that sounds crazy, we're a medical lab, but we have a software development team. And I said, I need you to build a travel portal for anyone in this province to be able to fly. And then we reached out to partner pharmacies and said, we need to be able to collect specimens from any community, wherever someone needs to go, and we need to be able to fly them home. And we need to be able to get them on a plane, and we need to get them a test and somehow coordinate this within 48 hours of them walking through that gate. And that was an incredible challenge. And we ended up working with Air Canada, with WestJet, but I am very happy to say that Alberta was first. We were the first people in Canada to be able to fly out. There's a reason why that border pilot came here. It's because we were first. It's because we were already leading when they needed to demonstrate what was possible. Again, Alberta became the proof point for what you could do in Canada for international travel. Again, Alberta has so much opportunity to demonstrate its entrepreneurial spirit. As leaders, there are so many amazing challenges to solve. And what I love about Alberta is just that roll-up sleeve attitude. And that, that one success just leads to so many successes. The World Juniors was right behind the NHL. All right, if you could do it for the NHL, we believe you can do it for the World Juniors. Let's do it, right? And then it was the WHL. And then curling came to us and said, we've had to shut down all the curling events across Canada. But the facility we need you to do it is in Calgary. And your lab's in Edmonton. How could we do curling? How can we support, the Brier and the Scotties and all the things we're all watching on TV in the evening? How do we do that? And so we reached out to Calgary and we found a lab and we built a lab. And we built a lab in Calgary specifically focused on economic development support, which has brought film crews from across the world to come film in Canada because we can build bubbles here in Alberta. It has allowed us to host events when every other province said no, Alberta said yes. And we didn't do it irresponsibly. We did it safely. And we did it because we had confidence that we could do it and because we trusted that we had the innovators that could pull it off. And so, it's such an exciting story. But it didn't end there. And the hardest challenge was still to come. Right after the sort of NH bubble, while we were still solving the travel problem, I got a call from public health. And our teams work with AHS and public health every day. And public health was seeing what was coming on the horizon for this fall. And they reached out to us and said, we understand and we appreciate all the support you've been able to do for economic development, but we need you on the public health front line. And again, the challenge was they couldn't give us resources. We couldn't interfere with their supply chain. We couldn't do any of those things. And so we put our science team back to work. And we said we need to go from 2,000 tests a day for COVID. We need to get to 15,000 tests a day. Public health wants us to be able to do at least a third of the province projected COVID testing for wave 2. And we have 90 days. We have 90 days to somehow get to the same level of public health in the province. And my team took that challenge. And I'll tell you, it was really scary because this was not turning down hockey players, and this was not saying no to curling, and this was not, saying no, we can't support that event or that charity or the world's longest hockey game. This was no, we can't back up a province that desperately needs to win this battle to save people's lives. And I'll tell you, like, it still makes me sick to my stomach as we thought through how we were going to try and solve that problem. And of course, we said yes. We couldn't say no. There was no option. It was just, this is what we need you to do. And so my team met, and I want to thank some of the partners in the downtown office space, because I literally, I kicked a whole bunch of our staff out of the building. And this is the lab I'm calling you from right now in downtown Edmonton. And we gutted our first floor, and we decided we were going to build 4 separate COVID labs so that if one COVID lab went down because staff got infected, that we would still maintain 3/4 of our capacity. We would still be able to meet this provincial mandate for support. We literally bought used equipment, anything we could find from anywhere in North America. And I remember I got a call because some lab had a piece of equipment we could use, but they didn't know how to get it to us. And we found someone in Montreal who was willing to, the borders weren't shut yet across the provinces, and they were willing to put it in the back of a car. And if I paid them $3,000, they would drive from Montreal to bring it to us. And that's what they did. And they drove it from Montreal. We had equipment coming in from all over the world to help support us, to try and build a new way of doing this testing that wasn't going to interfere with anything public health is doing. And as I sit you here today, we're probably going to cross 10,000 tests today alone. And the vast majority of those tests are from all of the assessment centers in the Edmonton region and all throughout Northern Alberta. And I can't tell you how hard that has been and how scary that has been. I hope I never, ever have to repeat what we've had to do this year ever again in my lifetime. It has completely exhausted us. But the point is, we're here, it's working, public health is working. And I think this has been an amazing Alberta story, an amazing testament to the public and private sector. But our journey's not over. As we go into this summer and as the variants take hold, it's not done yet. But there's hope on the horizon. There's the vaccines, mine scheduled for May 5th. There's lots of challenges still ahead. The vaccine is not a silver bullet. It's not just going to solve all the problems. It's not going to take all away our problems as employers. And we can talk a little bit about that in the Q&A session. But as employers, we are a sense of normal. This can't continue. We can't shut down for years. Our economy can't survive that. As Janet indicated, our downtown can't survive that. We've got to find a way to work again. I've learned lots of hard lessons over the last year, trying to keep our team going. As we lose people for 21 days, and we're not immune to that. That happens here too. But there are great technologies, there are great solutions, there are really simple, practical things. People ask me, well, what are some of the key things you can do? And they're really simple. Wash your hands, go to your meeting rooms and take out 2 of every 3 chairs. And that's how many people can be in a meeting room with a mask. Buy a lot of plexiglass. That's helpful. Turn the extra spaces into lunchrooms so that staff have lots of space between each other. Try and eliminate carpooling wherever you can. Like there's so many very practical, pragmatic things we can do. And sometimes I know as leaders, we feel out of control in this, and we don't have to be. There are answers, and Alberta Health and the AHS team, they're not there to shut you down. They're there to help you. They'll help you make a safe work environment. They'll work with you. Their goal is not to penalize people. Their goal is to help you try and keep your staff safe and keep the wheels on our economy turning. And keep the wheels on things like our downtown turning. I will tell you, when I was having to come into work in March, I thought I was on the movie set of Legend, if everyone remembers that, with Will Smith, where it's literally like a zombie apocalypse in downtown. And that's what our downtown felt like. All of the buildings were shut. All of the pedways were shut. That's not an Edmonton I want to live in, and that's not an Edmonton I ever want to see again. As we move forward, it's been really hard, but I believe there are so many bright lights in this province. I love our entrepreneurial spirit. So many things that we did in Alberta during COVID, we led Canada. Over and over again, we led Canada. And some people go, oh yeah, well, look at the number of cases we have in things. Yeah, but also remember, we have the most advanced testing system in Canada. There's no delays for variant testing. There's no delays for COVID screening. Our numbers are as real as they get. And that is not the same in all the other provinces. And so, when you're looking at all those numbers, remember, our numbers are real. We are testing every day. Those numbers are turned around in 24 hours, and public health turns the variant testing around in 24 hours. It's amazing. So with that, I'm going to pass it to some questions. It's been an incredible journey. I think there's so much hope in this province. I'm really excited that the city of Edmonton is really focused on helping us bring our downtown back. And I'm really looking forward to a lot of cooperative work in getting our teams back. With that, Janet, I'll turn it over.
Jason, thank you so much. It's positively inspirational. Your messages are so timely, and your leadership and the efforts of your team and the sheer vision that you've kept on our horizon to ensure our safety and security. So important and so valuable. So thank you very much for that. That behind the scenes glimpse too, fascinating. I'm sure for everybody, certainly for me. So it's wonderful. We're going to, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a Q&A after I bring our closing remarks, and so that you can ask questions of any of our presenters, including Elan. So I'm going to move to that now. Now, I thought I was the luckiest person in the province when I was selected for my role back in late 2014. I had this unique opportunity to take a more than century-old organization into its next dimension, to modernize and refresh it in ways that would ensure that the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce continues to stand the tests and the stresses that time and circumstance place upon it. Even then, it was clear that businesses were on the cusp of significant challenge. Over the course of my first year, oil prices dropped by nearly 2/3. Pipeline projects were becoming increasingly politicized, and new governments with much different agendas, were beginning to layer more and more costs on the backs of businesses. And as these challenges mounted, your Edmonton Chamber worked hard to represent your interests. We championed infrastructure investment. We urged government to embrace transformational change and develop new operational efficiencies to stop that continual escalation of taxes. We launched programs and supports to help businesses navigate through a declining economy and diminishing markets. And we brought thought leaders together to help us and our elected officials understand the cost pressures that were escalating rapidly. But the biggest challenge was one that none of us could have predicted: the impacts of a worldwide pandemic. You know, these are truly unprecedented times for our job creators and for our chamber. The COVID-19 pandemic has had devastating impacts on our health and our economy, and we've been caught up in a whirlwind trying to adapt to a rapidly evolving environment where there are still so many unknowns. You know, by nature, I'm a glass half full kind of person, but at times, and I know I share this with so many, it's been difficult to hang on to any sense of optimism with so much uncertainty just swirling around us. Over the course of the past many months, we've had the opportunity now to gain an understanding of your challenges and your fears, your intentions. And I'm so inspired to see the proactive leadership that you've demonstrated despite the incredible challenges and many painful decisions you've faced, even when it comes at great personal cost. We have so many opportunities on our horizon, developing our natural resources responsibly, ethically as we transition to the low carbon economy of the future, becoming a hub for transportation and logistics, and growing food that sustains us and it sustains our world. And you know, we have the expertise to weave artificial intelligence through all of this to best advantage, maximizing our efficiency and our effectiveness in ways we can't even contemplate right now. I have every confidence that we'll emerge from this pandemic stronger and more resilient than before. We're pivoting now to envision a post-pandemic environment and our place in it. I know we're going to do this with the same strong and unwavering spirit that we've demonstrated throughout these unbelievably troubled times. Yeah, there's a long road ahead, to be sure. And, you know, once we emerge from this pandemic, we know we're still facing an economy that continues to somewhat bounce along the bottom. But of this, I'm certain. Together, we're going to create an even better Alberta, one to live and work in and to raise future generations of innovative thinkers and community builders. And your Edmonton Chamber will be an engaged and productive partner on every step of that journey. Now, I began my remarks with reflecting on our past and our current realities. It's time now to look to the future. I believe the Edmonton Chamber mirrors the structure and complexities of our business community. The Chamber is flexible and agile, responsive and relevant to our ever-changing landscape. We have a strong value proposition, robust strategic and operational plans, a powerful advocacy framework, and a highly skilled team. All the right factors are in place now for new leadership, for fresh new perspectives and ideas. This role has given me the opportunity to be involved in city building and in a keen and focused way, and I leave feeling like I've truly made a difference. But I didn't do it alone, not by a long shot. I thank the board of directors, the mighty chamber team, our dedicated volunteers, and our incredible members. Each of you give the chamber tremendous strength and resilience. Over the last 3 decades, I've been this chamber's board chair, the CEO, and a passionate supporter. I will continue to champion this amazing organization, and well, I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to lead it. In June, you're going to have the pleasure of getting to know my successor, Jeffrey Sundquist. Jeff will bring so much to our table. I leave with the great satisfaction of knowing that we'll continue to deliver on our considerable and highly respected legacy with strong and focused leadership. So, it's time now for me to throw my hat over the fence and go see what's on the other side. Don't you just, I love that visual. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. It has been a great ride. I am happy now to open the floor to questions and comments for any of our presenters. Thanks so much.
So we'll give it a few minutes while the questions come in. And just thanks to Kristen Carter for the kind comment in the chat box. So again, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the toolbar. So Janet, we have no questions at this time, so I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. You know, it's been a busy meeting, I know that. And I know that some beautiful weather awaits us outside. Jason, once again, thank you for a very inspirational and very informative, very thoughtful presentation. Alan, thank you for conducting a great formal meeting, and so happy to have you here as board chair. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 2021 annual general meeting of the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. If there's anything we can do to help you at any time, I hope you know we welcome your call. Before I close, I'd like to thank you sincerely for the gift of your support and encouragement. I wish you all great health and brighter days ahead. And I hope you go out, if you're not vaccinated now, you go out and get your vaccination as soon as possible. Thank you for being here.